Hello and welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shuja and these are the headlines. The number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has topped 12 million with nearly 256,000 fatalities. India has recorded over 500 deaths in a day, bringing the tally over 133,000 with nearly 9.1 million infections. Pakistan has registered over 2,600 new cases and 59 deaths overnight, taking the total to 7,662. Globally, the virus has claimed over 1.37 million lives and infected more than 58 million. A Pennsylvania court has dismissed a lawsuit from the Trump campaign that sought to invalidate millions of mail-in votes in the state. The move paves the way for the state to certify Joe Biden's win by 80,000 votes. This comes 2 days after the ballot audit in battleground state of Georgia declared Biden as the winner. Afghanistan's chief negotiator Abdullah says Kabul and the Taliban are very close to breaking a stalemate in peace talks. In an interview, Chairman of High Council for National Reconciliation Abdullah said both sides will hopefully pass this phase and get to the substantial issues, including security. His statement comes a day after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met the Taliban and the government negotiators in Doha. In Guatemala, thousands of demonstrators have set the country's parliament on fire in a protest against slashing of healthcare and education budget. The protesters demand for a presidential veto of the budget. In a tweet, President Alejandro Giammattei says he is considering modifications to the budget. And in tennis, Russian Daniil Medvedev has ousted Rafael Nadal in the semifinals to book a battle with Dominic Thiem for the ATP Finals title. In a sizzling contest, Medvedev beat the 20 times Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal 3-6, 7-6, 6-3. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. The number of COVID-19 cases in the United States has topped 12 million with nearly 256,000 fatalities. India has recorded over 500 deaths in a day, bringing the tally over 133,000 with nearly 9.1 million infections. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 1.37 million lives and infected some 58 million.
The second wave of COVID-19 is spreading at an unprecedented rate, infecting 2 million Americans in the past 12 days. To make things worse, millions of Americans are expected to travel for the upcoming Thanksgiving holiday, ignoring warnings from health officials. Meanwhile, Eastern Europe alone accounts for more than 5 million cases. Amid surging cases, the UK is set to announce a one-year package worth nearly $4 billion to support the state-run National Health Service. With an approved vaccine still not available, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has given emergency use authorization for the antibody therapy that cured President Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Moderna Chief Executive Stefan Bancel has finally given a ballpark figure of what the vaccine would cost. In an interview, Bancel said Moderna will charge governments between $25 and $37 per dose.
The Group of 20 Economies has pledged to do needful to support poor countries as they struggle to recover from COVID-19 pandemic. Saudi Arabia is hosting the two-day virtual summit to discuss how to deal with COVID-19 and its economic fallout. More in this report.
The leaders expressed concern the pandemic might further deepen global divisions between the rich and the poor. The host stressed equal and equitable distribution of resources to eliminate the virus completely.
ولقد أثبتت The pandemic has demonstrated that international cooperation is the optimal way to overcome crisis. We must focus on the most vulnerable segments. We must provide support for all countries of the world, for we would not be safe until everyone is safe.
Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan said it is impossible to deal with the pandemic without cooperation. He added the countries with weaker economies should not be left to their fate. German Chancellor Angela Merkel went a step further, calling for collective preemptive and proactive preparedness for a similar challenge.
Diese kurzfristige Hilfe ist in unser aller.
We need reliable funding, better cooperation, greater independence. And the G20 can provide important, indeed crucial support in this area. If we stand together across the globe, we can control and overcome this virus and its impact.
French President Emmanuel Macron said the world will need to choose between global cooperation and national selfishness. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Moscow is ready to provide its Sputnik V vaccine to other countries who need it. Putin added Russia is also preparing second and third vaccines against COVID-19, while US President Donald Trump skipped the special side conference which was focused on the pandemic.
In Pakistan, 59 people have lost their lives to COVID-19 overnight, registering the highest daily number since the second wave in the country. The health ministry says the death toll has risen to 7,662. The ministry said 2,665 tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. It said there are more than 36,000 active COVID-19 cases in the country. The ministry noted of over 347,000 countrywide cases, nearly 330,000 have recovered so far. The southern province of Sindh has the highest number of cases with over 162,000 confirmed infections. The province capital city of Karachi has imposed smart and micro-smart 2 weeks lockdown in various locations. Pakistan has rejected Indian attempts to implicate the country in an alleged attack in occupied Kashmir's Nagorno area. The Foreign Office summoned a senior Indian diplomat to convey Islamabad's protest over New Delhi's groundless allegations. It said India is trying to divert attention from its state terrorism in Pakistan and occupied Kashmir. The Foreign Office said India has had a history of conducting false flag operations in the valley and blaming it on Pakistan. It added Islamabad has already put forward irrefutable evidence of India's active financing and execution of terror activities in Pakistan. The office said New Delhi must take practical steps to implement the United Nations resolution on the occupied Kashmir dispute. Over in the United States, a Pennsylvania court has dismissed a lawsuit from the Trump campaign seeking to invalidate millions of mail-in votes. The move paves the way for the state to certify Joe Biden's win by some 80,000 votes. After a scathing court setback in Pennsylvania, President Donald Trump faces increased pressure from his fellow Republicans to drop his effort to overturn the United States presidential election and concede to Democrat Joe Biden. Since Biden was declared the winner 2 weeks ago, Trump has launched a barrage of lawsuits and mounted a pressure campaign to prevent states from certifying their votes total. So far, attempts to thwart certification have failed in courts in Georgia, Michigan, and Arizona. Now, a Republican federal judge dismissed a similar effort in Pennsylvania. District Judge Matthew Brand said he has no authority to take away the right to vote of even a single citizen. He described the case as strained legal arguments without merit and speculative accusations. In a statement, Trump's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, said he was disappointed with the ruling and will seek an accelerated appeal. For Trump to have any hopes of overturning the election, he needs to reverse the outcome in Pennsylvania. This comes 2 days after a manual audit in the battleground state of Georgia declared Biden as the winner. Meanwhile, election officials in Wisconsin have accused Trump observers of obstructing a recount in the state's largest county. Afghanistan's chief negotiator Abdullah Abdullah says Kabul and the Taliban are very close to breaking a stalemate in peace talks. In an interview, Chairman of High Council for National Reconciliation Abdullah Abdullah said both sides will hopefully pass this phase and will get to the substantial issues, including security. He added if a complete comprehensive ceasefire is not possible, reduction in violence could be an option. Abdullah warned that the increasing violence is damaging the trust of the people over the peace process. He said the United States troops should withdraw from Afghanistan when the conditions are met. Earlier in Doha, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo met negotiators from the Afghan government and the Taliban amid ongoing peace talks. Pompeo's visit comes hours after a string of rocket attacks in Kabul, killing 8 people and wounding 31. A Taliban spokesperson said the head of the group's political office, Mullah Abdul Ghani Bardar, met with Pompeo and his team. Mohammed Naim said the two sides focused on outstanding issues related to the ongoing talks between the warring parties. In a separate meeting, the Taliban spokesperson said the head of the group's political office, Mullah Abdul Ghani Bardar, met with Pompeo and his team. Mohammed Naim said the two sides focused on outstanding issues related to the ongoing talks between the warring parties. In a separate meeting with the Afghan government's negotiators, Pompeo discussed the need for a ceasefire. Kabul's peace negotiator Fawzia Kufi says they also raised the issue of respecting diversity and preserving human rights. The meeting comes as the outgoing U.S. administration looks to speed up the withdrawal of American troops from Afghanistan. Pompeo also held talks with Qatar's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs. Both sides discussed defense and counter-terrorism initiatives. Australia's defense chief says the country's forces must own the report that highlighted their crimes in Afghanistan. In an interview, General Angus Campbell vowed changes to avoid recurrence of such atrocities. The top military official said he will be held accountable until the report is dealt with thoroughly. Campbell said if the defense forces do not fix the horror, it will appear again. He said that is unacceptable.
See layers of responsibility here, David, and that's why it's going to take a little while to work through this report, its recommendations, and to thoroughly implement it. I am determined to see deep, comprehensive and enduring change where it's needed.
The report found senior Australian commandos forced junior soldiers to kill defenseless captives in order to blood them for combat. In Guatemala, thousands of demonstrators have set the country's parliament on fire in a protest against slashing of healthcare and education budget. The protesters demand a presidential veto of the budget. 14 people were injured after clashes broke out with the police, who used tear gas to disperse the mob. With cuts on healthcare and education, the $12.9 billion budget has increased public debt. Vice President Guillermo Castillo said they opposed the budget plan, demanding President Alejandro Giatami's resignation. In a tweet, Giatami said he is considering modifications to the budget. The president added he has been meeting with various groups to present changes to the controversial budget. Giatami took office in January, shortly before the pandemic struck the country, home to an already weak economy. Israel says it has bombed the western and southern parts of Gaza. Tel Aviv accused Hamas of firing a rocket at the southern city of Ashkelon. In a tweet, the Israeli Defense Forces say they struck Hamas targets, including rocket manufacturing sites. It said the airstrikes also targeted underground infrastructure, a training facility, as well as a military compound. There were no immediate reports of casualties. Hamas officials have not commented on the accusations. In Lebanon, 5 inmates have died in an accident in the capital, Beirut. Lebanon's internal security forces say inmates' car hit a tree after more than 60 prisoners broke out of a detention center. In a statement, it said 1 prisoner was injured and taken to the hospital. The ISF said 15 prisoners had been caught, while 4 others turned themselves in. Security forces cordoned off the nearby areas and started searching the suspects. The presidency tweeted President Michel Aoun has ordered the intensifying the search operations and probe the incident. Prisons in Lebanon are known to be overcrowded, raising fears of a coronavirus outbreak in the facilities. In India, 3 Maoist rebels have been killed in a gunfight with security forces in the eastern Bihar state. An Indian parliamentary force says the encounter took place during a search and operation area domination area in the Bachrati forest. It said the authorities have recovered 2 weapons. The Maoists have been fighting for the rights of tribal people for more than 3 decades. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. West African nation of Burkina Faso is holding presidential and legislative elections today. Over 6.5 million are registered to vote, but no ballots will be cast in 1/5 of the country's territory. The Electoral Commission says most of the polling stations in the north and east will remain shut due to the fear of violence. The official data shows that at 400,000 people, which is nearly 7% of the electorate, will be unable to cast their votes. The United States Embassy has issued a warning to American citizens in the Burkina Faso amid a deteriorating security situation. 12 contenders are appearing in the election, with current President Roch Kabore, who is looking for a second 5-year term. Opposing candidate Zefrin Debar has accused the president of orchestrating a massive fraud to secure re-election. In France, thousands took to the streets of Paris to protest a proposed law over circulating the images of police officers. Under the law, sharing images of police will be punishable with up to a year in prison and a maximum of over $53,000 fine. The demonstrators gathered at the Trocadero Square and chanted slogans against the police. They said their law will infringe journalists' freedom to report, making it hard to hold police accountable for abuses. The protesters said excessive use of force is a growing public concern, but the supporters of the law say police officers and their families need protection from harassment. China's manned deep-sea submersible Striver has concluded its diving trials after undergoing acceptance check by an expert team. More about this submarine in this report.
A key project of China's 13th five-year plan, Striver has successfully completed 8 diving operations at the Mariana Trench in the Western Pacific Ocean. Striver is the world's deepest diving manned submersible, hitting a record depth of 10,909 meters.
I appreciate everyone's support for and meticulous operation of the sea trials of Striver. I now announce that the sea trials of the deep-sea submersible Striver have been brought to a successful close.
During its diving trials, China's self-developed submersible obtained large amount of research material. The material will be used for deep-sea scientific exploration, such as sediment, rocks, and sea biological samples. Experts say the successful diving trials pave way for China's future deep-sea research.
Various core parts of Striver, such as the titanium alloy manned spherical shell, buoyancy material, thruster, oil-filled lithium battery, and acoustic communication control system, were all produced domestically.
Striver was launched in 2016 by scientists who previously developed manned submersibles Zhalong and Shanghai Yongxie.
China is set to launch an unmanned spacecraft to the moon this week to bring back lunar rocks. This will be the first attempt by any nation to retrieve samples from the Earth's natural satellite since the 1970s. More in this report.
The Chang'e 5 probe will seek to collect material that can help scientists understand more about the moon's origins and formation. The mission will test China's ability to remotely acquire samples from space ahead of more complex missions. It may help answer questions such as how long the moon remained volcanically active in its interior and when its magnetic field dissipated. The team behind the project conducted its final joint test before the launch.
The mission will last 23 days, involving 23 times of major orbit control, 6 times of major separation control, powered lowering, moon surfacing taking off, lunar orbit rendezvous, and other relevant tasks of higher risks in the history.
If successful, the mission will make China only the 3rd country to have retrieved lunar samples following the US and the Soviet Union decades ago.
Excavations in Pompeii have recovered the remains of 2 dwellers frozen in time by an eruption of Mount Vesuvius nearly 2,000 years ago. More in this report.
Pompeii, 23 kilometers southeast of Naples, was home to about 13,000 people when it was buried under ash, pumice pebbles, and dust as it endured the force of the Vesuvius eruption in 79 AD. The ruins were not discovered until the 16th century, and organized excavations began about 1750. Now, Italian archaeologists have unearthed the exceptionally preserved bodies of 2 men.
The 2 victims are an incredible and extraordinary testimony of that morning of October 25, when the eruption took place. These two victims were perhaps seeking refuge when they were swept away by the pyroclastic current at 9 a.m. when the plume gets to Pompeii, destroying the higher part of the city completely, killing everybody in its path.
Archaeologists have tentatively identified the remains as a wealthy landowner and a younger enslaved person. The remains were found in Civita Juliana, 700 meters northwest of the center of ancient Pompeii, in an underground chamber in the area of a large villa being excavated.
In Brazil, people are adapting to the need to slow the spread of COVID-19 by having children meet Santa virtually. More in this report.
The pandemic has forced many changes on the world, but it did not stop children from telling Santa Claus their Christmas wish list. This year, though, they just might have to do it virtually. At Norte Shopping, the largest shopping center in Rio de Janeiro, Santa's Village has made some special arrangements for children.
They come and the happiness is the same as when they saw me on my seat. Because I think they're so used to the audio and video that for them this is normal, appearing on television or mobile phone.
Children must have to clean their hands with a disinfectant prior to telling Santa what they want for Christmas.
For him, this is good because he's in a risk group. It's important for him to stay isolated and take care of himself too. And for all of us too, because we need Santa Claus all year.
The city of Rio de Janeiro has been slowly lifting restrictions meant to halt the spread of coronavirus. Last month, authorities began allowing outdoor gatherings.
And now sports. In tennis, Daniil Medvedev beats Rafael Nadal in the semi-finals to book a battle with Dominic Thiem for the ATP Finals title. In a sizzling contest, the Russian thrashed the 20-times Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal 3-6, 7-6, and 6-3. Medvedev was the more aggressive player throughout and was composed in the final set. Nadal posted errors. The Russian hit 42 winners and smashed 13 aces to outclass the former world number one. The 24-year-old Medvedev reached the semi-finals as the only unbeaten player in his group. Earlier, Thiem defeated Serbia's world number one Novak Djokovic 7-5, 6-7, and 7-6. The Austrian fought back from a 4-0 deficit in the deciding third-set tiebreak to win and book his place in the final. In football, Borussia Dortmund half-thrashed Hertha Berlin 5-2 at the away fixture in Bundesliga league. Erling Braut Haaland scored 4 second-half goals for the men in yellow. Brazilian winger Matheus Cunha scored either half for Hertha. The in-form Haaland scored 21 times in 17 matches for club and country this season. Dortmund will return to Champions League action on Tuesday, playing to host the Cubs Bruges. In another fixture, Eintracht Frankfurt played a 1-1 draw against RB Leipzig at home. Eamon Barkok's first-half goal was equalized by Leipzig's Yusuf Poulsen in the second half. Meanwhile, Manchester United beat West Brom 1-0 in the Premier League clash at Old Trafford. Bruno Fernandes scored the only goal for the match for United.
After successive victories, United are in the top half of the table for the first time this season. West Brom are in the relegation zone and still waiting for their first win this season. Earlier, Tottenham Hotspur beat Manchester City 2-0 at home. In the La Liga, Atletico Madrid have beaten Barcelona 1-0 at home to move level on points with leaders Real Sociedad. Yannick Carrasco scored the only goal of the match on the stroke of half-time. It was a hard day for Barcelona as they also lost defender Gerard Piqué to injury. Meanwhile, Serie A champions Juventus beat Cagliari 2-0 at home. Cristiano Ronaldo scored a brace to seal 3 points for Juventus. With 4 wins and 4 draws, Juventus remain unbeaten in the league this season.
It's now time to take a look at the weather around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.